咁咧就會就住我哋執法方面咧就係再作一啲説明嘅。唔該曬，老師。
Thank you, Sam. So we've just heard about the different remedies that are available under the ordinance, and we'll be providing more guidance in the future about how we'll decide which of those remedies to seek in a particular case. But at a general level, here are some severity factors that we will take into account. Whether the conduct has caused substantial harm, whether it's restricting entry or expansion in market, whether there's been blatant disregard for the law, or whether the undertaking has a history of contravening the law. And so, as a parallel, if people engage in breaches of the ordinance that are inadvertent or don't cause much harm, we're more likely to look at them less severely and take a more lenient approach to them. We'll be getting our evidence from a range of sources. We have lots of powers under the ordinance to collect evidence, whether we interview people or can ask for documents, or if we need to undertake search warrants. We'll also be monitoring markets to look out for information and evidence. We'll be relying on whistleblowing and, as previously mentioned, self-reporting by people who fear that they may contravene the law will be an important part of our toolkit. Leniency requests overseas have been a very important part of people being able to fight cartels, and the estimate is that 90% of the cartels in Europe are by people self-reporting and then getting immunity in return for helping the prosecuting authorities. So just to quickly mention where we're going to in the next little while before the ordinance comes into effect and we can start that enforcement process. We've issued the paper today called Getting Prepared for the Full Implementation of the Competition Ordinance to set out some of the work that we're proposing to do. For the next few months, we'll be engaging on embarking on a process of engagement and advocacy. We really want to hear from businesses in Hong Kong about the types of practices that they are concerned about that might risk breaching the ordinance, so that we can understand and guide them as to the impact of the ordinance on them. We're encouraging businesses to start now in preparing for the beginning of the ordinance, and so we'll be doing lots of education, workshops and seminars, and lots of advocacy with the chambers. It will be a two-way process. We want to hear from them about their concerns, but also want to make sure we educate the Hong Kong public before the ordinance comes into effect. After this initial process, we'll then be ready with the text of the draft guidelines in about September, and we'll then go into a more formal consultation process in relation to those guidelines, again with the full range of stakeholders, so that we can prepare with the issue of the guidelines, with various other publications and educational material, and also our internal processes, so that we're ready to embark on the enforcement and administration of the ordinance, hopefully in the early part of next year. An important part of the message that we're starting with already is that we really want to encourage business to comply with the ordinance. It's in our interests as a commission for people to be compliant, and we don't have to do so much work investigating. So that we'll be making everything easy for people to understand how it may impact on them, how they can comply, what they need to stop doing, where their risk areas are, and what sort of action they can take to mitigate some of the risky conduct that they might be engaged in at the moment. So a big part of our message is that compliance is the most important thing. So our guidelines that we're starting to draft now and that will be published in September, the ordinance actually mandates what those guidelines will be about. So we have to do guidelines on the 3 rules that Sam described to you. We have to do a guideline on our procedure for investigations and for handling exemptions and for handling complaints. We'll obviously be embarking on a widespread consultation process, but we'll also draw on international best practice. As the chairman mentioned, there's many people from around the world joining the commission, and we'll be able to utilise all their background. And we'll also, of course, be trying to tailor them specifically to be of most use to businesses in Hong Kong. The guidelines won't be subsidiary legislation, they won't bind the tribunal, they won't be law, but they'll give an important indication to people as to how we'll interpret the ordinance and how they can comply with it. We'll also have a whole range of additional publications dealing with the leniency issues that we described, but also publications aimed at small and medium enterprises that are more user-friendly to help them understand how the ordinance will work. In addition to the booklet, and you may have noticed this already, there's a discussion note in the back of the booklet. This is far more detailed, and it deals with some of the really specific issues that we need to tackle in preparing the guidelines. We'll be using this as the basis for meetings with stakeholders. Some of the themes that are in that are issues about information sharing and understanding when information sharing may be at risk under the ordinance and when it might not be, the impact of arrangements, like joint purchasing arrangements, the various vertical agreements that may or may not be in place. How do we determine market power? What types of conduct in Hong Kong are concerning to small businesses in particular, and what people are looking for from the Commission in relation to our procedures. So we've issued these documents, we've got them on our website soon, I think, if not already, and then we'll be going on with the process of consultation guidelines, more publications and toolkits for people, and general information about the ordinance and the Commission that will be available over the coming months.